Ladies and gentlemen, we are 8 races into the 2022 IndyCar calendar, and Joseph Newgarden has already won 3 races and $1 million. And today's race at Road America was a pretty interesting race. So today, I'm going to be giving my opinions on what went down today at Road America. So first off, before we even get into anything that actually happened during the race, I want to lodge a bit of a complaint for the TV direction for NBC. Not exactly TV direction, but more TV scheduling for NBC, at least in the Indianapolis area. So the race, pre-race coverage was scheduled to start at 12:30, and the race started a couple minutes before 1, something like 12:56, 12:57. Now, while pre-race was supposed to start at 12:30, in Indiana, for some reason, they didn't start pre-race coverage at 12:30. They had some golf documentary, essentially, that they were playing, that they basically kept playing up right until the green flag dropped. And then at that point, they just straight up jump cut to the cars taking the green flag. We didn't get any pre-race. We didn't get any, parade laps or anything. And we didn't get any explanation from NBC as to what the heck had just happened. It just kind of, here's the race. Which, that's stupid. Like, that's just flat out stupid. First of all, this is Indiana we're talking. I don't think this happened everywhere because, there was pre-race coverage, obviously. They didn't just jump straight into it. At least it didn't sound like, it was the NBC booth's first time talking or whatever, and I think they're doing stuff on Peacock. But at least in Indiana, just literally jumped straight to the start of the race. And I had seen that, just looking at a TV guide, I saw that the coverage for, just whenever it said the race is supposed to start, said 1 o'clock. So I had actually jumped on just a few minutes before that so that I was there for, pre-race to start, because I wasn't exactly sure what time the race was supposed to start. And it, I don't know, it started before the scheduled time. So first of all, if someone was just looking at the TV guide and said, okay, I'll turn it on at 1, they would have missed the start of the race. And obviously, didn't get any of the pre-race stuff that, you should have gotten. Which, I don't know, that's just bad on NBC. I think, don't do that. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get what about golf was so important that you had to, it was not even like there was actually any golf event going on. It was literally some type of golf documentary about something. So, priorities. But anyways, I don't know, that's my complaints for NBC. But moving on to the start of the race, it was actually a extremely messy first 10 laps of the race because we didn't get a green flag lap in until lap 11. Right on the start, you had Jimmy Johnson going off at turn 1 and spinning on the, I believe it was the second, it would have been the first restart. There was a situation where Marcus Ericsson and Alex Palou made contact, which I can talk about here in just a second. And then finally, they were able to actually get the race going green and stay green for quite a while. Now, that Ericsson and Palou incident. So Marcus Ericsson was trailing his teammate Alex Palou and going down into a corner. Ericsson saw a somewhat late gap, but still a gap nonetheless, and went up the inside, and Ericsson was able to get up Palou's inside and actually get in front of him, and then Palou came in and hit the side of his car. Now, Palou blamed Ericsson because he felt that it was too late of a send. At that point, it seemed to Palou, at least, that it was his corner and that Ericsson shouldn't have sent it. Now, I disagree with that because, first of all, it didn't look like Ericsson wasn't going to be able to make the corner. In fact, he did after, getting hit. He made the corner quite easily. And while it was a pretty optimistic send, he still made it stick and was still decently ahead of him before Palou hit Ericsson. Now, at that point, Palou hit Ericsson. Well, it was a somewhat light tap. It was enough to break the front steering arm, and Palou essentially just went straight off into the grass and was forced to retire the car. So, obviously, not a good day for Alex Palou. Obviously, that's a big hit for him in the points, and I'm sure he will not look back at today too fondly. And there might be some issues within Chip Ganassi Racing because at least Palou thinks that it was Ericsson's fault. And it wasn't exactly clear after the race what Ericsson's opinion was. It seemed like, I mean, first of all, he hadn't seen a replay and it had been 50 laps. But I'd say Ericsson was in the right. I don't think that it was too crazy of a send. And I don't know, but, you know, you've got the replay up here. You guys can be the judge of that. But yeah, that's my opinion on that. Next up, we'll talk about the actual battle itself for the race. So the race today was a three-stopper. For the first stint, Alexander Rossi had led from pole and was able to pull away slightly from Joseph Newgarden. But then, coming into the first cycle of pit stops, Alexander Rossi and Newgarden both pitted at the same time, and Newgarden was actually able to beat Rossi out of the pits, and he was able to hold that lead for the next two tire stints and through to the end of the race. So, essentially, Rossi got beat off pit road. It seemed like throughout the race, Rossi might have been slightly faster than Newgarden, but he had lost quite a decent amount of time in that pit cycle. It was something like 3 or 4 seconds. It was quite hard for him to gain back. He spent most of the race kind of slowly just chipping away at tenths of that gap, and really, yeah, it felt like it was staying pretty much even. But Rossi was gaining slight bits of time, and just as the race went on, it seemed like Rossi would get a little bit closer, and then he'd come to a pit cycle, and Newgarden would get a bit more time. It seemed Newgarden was a bit slower on pit road in general, and then Rossi would just kind of slowly work his way somewhat closer. By the end of the race, that gap was down to about 1.5 or 2 seconds. But with 9 laps to go, Pato O'Ward had an engine issue. He was running in the top 10 at the time, but obviously with an engine issue, had to retire. And what that did was pack up the field. Now, Alex Rossi, it looked like he was going to be in a good position. He had more push to pass than Newgarden. It looked like he was marginally faster than Newgarden and all that stuff. But Marcus Ericsson was right behind Alexander Rossi. Now, at the time of the yellow, it was something like 8 seconds, the gap between Alex and Marcus, and it seemed like Marcus was slower than Alex Rossi. It didn't seem like it was going to be too much of a concern for Rossi. It looked like the battle was going to be between Newgarden and Rossi for the win, but on the restart, Elio Castroneves spun. So, had a yellow flag, and then on the next restart with 3 to go, I got a bit ahead of myself there. On the next restart with 3 to go, Marcus Ericsson was able to get Alex Rossi into turn number 1, and from that moment on, it seemed like Alex Rossi was just barely avoiding dropping a ton of spots. At first, he was under challenge from his teammate Colton Herta, but then after Herta got passed by Romain Grosjean, Grosjean was challenging Alex Rossi, and Grosjean had tons more push to pass and was practically could sit on the button for the entirety of the last lap, but he was able to hold his position in second. So, obviously, I had already said Joseph Newgarden was able to, while all this was happening, Joseph Newgarden was able to pull away and win by around 4 seconds. Obviously, second, Marcus Ericsson. Third, Alex Rossi. Fourth, Romain Grosjean, gaining quite a few spots on the last restart. Fifth, Colton Herta, who obviously, had dropped a spot on the last restart, but still a pretty good day for Colton. Sixth, Felix Rosenqvist. Now, almost everyone in this race did 3 stops, but there was a bit of a different strategy that a couple of guys were on. So, on that first on those first couple of yellows right at the beginning of the race, there were actually a few people that had gone down pit road and essentially, filled up with fuel just to top the car off. Felix Rosenqvist was one of those teams. Now, on essentially what their strategy was to essentially do it in 2 stops and have the I guess pitting under yellow to like not lose much time. So Rosenqvist was actually able to essentially save fuel the entire race and get to the end of the race where they would have finished with like just enough fuel. The yellow helped them a lot because they were essentially able to spend the last 3 laps where they they barely used any push to pass to save fuel, and by saving fuel, they were also saving tires. Rosenqvist was able to make a couple of passes on the last restart just due to the fact that he essentially had a car that was, everything about it was probably 10 laps fresher than everyone else. And since he had gotten the, benefit of the yellow with fuel, he didn't have to conserve anything. He was going to be able to finish the race. So Felix went a little bit off strategy and was able to put the car in P6, which was really good for Felix. So that's about all I have to talk about, I guess, for the race. So lastly, I'm going to talk about the point standings right now, because there's been some interesting shakeups going on. Of course, Joseph Newgarden has moved up from 5th to 3rd in the standings, with his 3rd win of the year, which is surprising, honestly. It's surprising that he's 3rd with 3 wins this year, considering no one else has won more than 1 race. Obviously, that's a product of, not doing well in the 500, not doing well in general in races that he hasn't won. But it's just interesting to see a person with 2 more wins than anyone else be, 40 points off the championship leader right now. So, speaking of the championship leader, we've had a change for the championship points lead. Marcus Ericsson, with his 2nd place finish, jumps ahead of Will Power in the points standings, now leading with 292 points. That's 26 points ahead of Will Power at the moment, which, I don't know. It's pretty cool that Ericsson's leading the points. Obviously, the 500 win helped him immensely. But Marcus Ericsson, just in general this year, has been performing really well. He's got 4 top 5s so far, which, obviously, you got this race. You have races like Detroit where he was pretty competitive. It seems like in the past couple of weeks, Marcus Ericsson has been really, really doing well, and has been able to obviously take the points lead at this point. 2nd, as I had mentioned, was Will Power. Now, Will actually didn't have a very good day today, and that's one more thing I need to talk about. I had forgotten to mention that. Will had actually gotten taken out by Devlin DiFrancesco. Coming into a braking zone, essentially, Devlin just missed the braking zone and plowed straight into the back of Will, which spun him. He was able to keep going, but it had killed his day at that point. He ended up finishing 19th. So not a good points day for Will. He falls from 1st in the championship to 2nd, but obviously still in contention. 4th in the championship, another guy who didn't have a very good day today, falling from 3rd to 4th, was Pato O'Ward. Obviously, the engine issue, no fault of his. But he does fall behind Newgarden in the standings there. He's 10 points behind him. 5th, yet another driver who had a bad day today, Alex Palou, who is 2 points behind Pato O'Ward. Obviously had the incident with Ericsson. Not much to mention there. 6th, a guy who's been extremely quiet this year, but obviously, as always, consistent, Scott Dixon. 7th in the standings right now is Alexander Rossi, who obviously putting the car 3rd today. This is his 3rd straight top 5. Rossi's on a tear at this point. Obviously, he has yet to turn any of those races into a win. Obviously, he could have today. He could have at Detroit. But Rossi's been doing really, really well recently. And while, I'd say first 5 races of the season, I wouldn't have really considered Rossi to be any kind of major championship threat. he might be now, honestly. If he keeps this up, I think he continues to creep up in the standings. I don't think he actually gained any spots, but there's a pretty big points gap between Rossi and then Rosenquist, who's below him, and then Scott Dixon. So, it's closing that gap and continuing to move on up in the standings. If he keeps putting out top five performances like this and can really get his groove at Andretti Autosport, it really looks like Rossi could be a contender for the championship, which is a thing that we've not been able to say about Alex in a while. So that's cool to see. Obviously, this was this race 3 years ago was the last race that he actually won. The team had said that they basically put on the setup from 2019, and that worked, which sounds like they've been kind of overthinking setups, trying to adjust for what the aero screen's doing. Just put on the same setup. I guess it works. It's surprising. It surprises me considering how much weight the aero screen adds, but I guess it works for them, which is really good. It's good to see Rossi back on pace, and I obviously can't wait to see how that continues to play out. Obviously, I'd said 8th is Felix Rosenquist. 9th is Scott McLaughlin, who started out the season really strong and has kind of slowly drifted off recently. McLaughlin had a quiet 7th place today, so not too bad for him. 10th is Simon Pagenaud, who is 12th today. Similar to McLaughlin, obviously without the, win at the start of the season. He's just kind of been, upper mid-pack throughout most of the year. Just kind of been able to hold his position within the standings there. So that's the top 10 in the championship standings. And that, I guess, I've run out of things to ramble on about at this point. So that has been the Sonsio Grand Prix of Road America. I swear they keep changing the sponsor for this race, and they haven't come up with, a name to attach to it other than just the Road America Grand Prix. So I'll just call it that. But yeah, that's about all I have for IndyCar. I'll be doing a race review of Le Mans. I was obviously asleep for 10 hours of that, and I missed stuff like the Corvette getting taken out by the AF Corsa LMP2. So that stuff I want to watch back. I want to get some more context of, and then I'll make a full race review for Le Mans. Obviously, yeah, some really interesting headlines in there, and of course, Toyota continuing their streak of domination because it's Toyota. But yeah, that's about all I have. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you all probably late tomorrow with a Le Mans race review. See you all then. Bye.